January 14, 2019, allegedly, according to that thing we call a calendar. And this, indeed, is the Ocelli Effect, broadcast live from the facilities of Ocelli.com, but also heard in a variety of other places. Now, it is a welcome back because I've been off for a week, but hey, you know what? We're going to kick off this particular moon day, Monday as it were, with our friend and, the legend himself, Jordan Maxwell, who hasn't been around for even longer than me. He was actually away for a little bit. Some people started asking me, is Jordan coming back on the show? And I had to keep answering, yes, he is. Until Jordan says the series is done, the series is not done. I have your questions, guys, and we're going to get to some other stuff in the next few days. But without any further ado, I'm going to get straight to Jordan. Before I do that, though, I'm going to remind you to go to JordanMaxwellShow.com. Now, why is that? Because it is the only website that is Jordan Maxwell's website. You can go there. You can join the Research Society, get a lot deeper on the topics that we're going to cover tonight, and a variety of other things that are all interconnected if you join the Research Society for a one-time fee. There are videos over there which stream that you can also purchase for a lot less than it would cost you to buy a DVD and have it mailed to you, or to buy a Blu-ray, or I don't even know what they come on anymore. I buy everything digitally if I buy it at all. So there it goes. Now, there's that. You can also, email Jordan. You can make a donation over there. You can take a look at the public part of the website. You can interact with Jordan and take a look at some media which is available there in the front area. But the website is constantly a work in progress. Even the Research Society has many terabytes of information waiting to be added to it. So JordanMaxwellShow.com is the place to go. Now, you got to put it all together. JordanMaxwellShow.com. That is the only website that is actually Jordan Maxwell's. So, without any more further ado or announcements or promotions or whatever, Jordan, how are you tonight, sir?
I think okay, but we'll find out soon enough. But thank you for having me back on.
Oh, listen, having you back on, I'm waiting here for the opportunity to bring you back on. I love having you on, Jordan. We've done this series on religion. As I keep putting them up on YouTube, now I did them a little slower this time, but even as I keep putting them up on YouTube, different people are discovering these things that have not heard it before. Some people have heard it. Some people appreciate the refresher. Some people are hearing different things that they don't believe they've heard before. I know that this has been a unique series because we've definitely gotten a lot of crowd participation, which is something that doesn't always happen with these types of shows. Of course, after you've done this for so many years, my friend, I'm very sure that, nothing is really all that new to you, but I really enjoyed this, and we are on the, I think is this 17th or 18th episode here in the series. I'm going to have to take a look back. I think it's the 17th, though, episode in the series, and yikes, it's been action-packed, and we've definitely gone through a lot of things. And like I said, guys, if you send an email to me, or if you send me a question on Twitter, or if you go in the live chat room at Ocelli.com, your questions, your inquiries, your commentary even, I will add it into the show, present it to Jordan, and I can't guarantee you any sort of results as to how it'll go, but I can guarantee you that if it's a relevant question, it'll be added into the show. And I think this is a fair enough concept that we've gone forward with for the most part here. Anyway, Jordan, what are your thoughts on the direction we should begin with while I try to gather up some of these questions? Because, of course, Windows made me reboot right before I go live to air, so had to scramble to pull things together, and now I got to try and pull up the emails.
I have to do the same thing. I have to scramble on every show because I always have to reboot to make sure my Skype is working correctly, etc. And I think it's probably just as well we start on one corner and work out and see where it goes, because there's so much to talk about in relation to the kind of information I deal with. I've always been interested in mysteries, and history itself is a mystery without understanding how history works, where, secret societies and fraternal orders are working all around us. I just saw today that there was a bombing in France. I don't know if it was today or yesterday or what, but it's a bombing in France. It's obviously the work of a group. And so that's the point I'm making when I talk about secret societies. There are different groups. We know that we call them organized crime syndicates. Secret societies are dealing with organized crime. We are also, we have all kinds of fraternal orders operating around the world. But the one thing that most people don't appreciate is how our world is being run for us by secret people who we don't even know exist. We don't know who they are, and we'll never hear their names. The people who really run this planet, you will never, ever hear their names. You will never see a picture of them. So all the people that we do see in the so-called illuminati world of the masters who run this planet, these are all middle-class people. They're not the real bosses. The real bosses you will never see or hear from or know their name or anything else, because they don't need you knowing anything about them. They are in control, they make the decisions, and that's the name of the tune. So that's why I've been very interested all my life in who really is running the planet Earth, who really owns us, and where does all this stuff come from, our religions, our military, industrial operations around the world. It's just an incredible story of secret people running our world for us. And we don't care because we don't do anything about it. And, of course, it's obvious there's not much we could do about it, even if we did know. So there's more poor and working-class poor people on the earth than there is the elites. And if the poor people were to stay together and stand together, instead of trying to destroy each other, if we stood together, we would be a profoundly important force for good and for exposing what's going on. And so there's a lot of good people like yourself who are trying to help others to wake the world up to what's really going on. So that's what we're doing here. We're just trying to keep you awake and awaken you to the fact that the world is not what you think it is. Nothing operates the way you think it does.
Well,
and so that's what I've been trying to do.
Oh, I know it. And let me interrupt you with something here, because this is a fascinating thing that keeps coming. Hang on just a second here. Let me adjust the microphone because it's giving me a little trouble. The issue comes up all the time. A lot of people say, well, listen, you guys talk about these things and you lay them out. And then when you talk about what it is we can do about it, it seems pretty hopeless. We're all doomed anyway. Why bother if we're all doomed? Now, here's the interesting kind of conversation I started to get into, and I want to know if you feel the same way that I do, that this is the best understanding that I can possibly put forward about it. And it is this. And also I have a key question I just dug up here, which somebody sent me some weeks ago, related to Hiram Abiff, by the way, and a few things connected to that. But before I get there, overall philosophy, whereas, listen, if there's nothing we can do about any of this, then why talk about it? Here's the reality of the situation, Jordan, and I want to see if you agree with what it is that I see. At any moment, in truth, there is a huge difference between what can be done and what will feasibly be done on the planet. For instance, there's absolutely no reason for anyone on this planet to suffer for lack of food, shelter, clothing, any resource. That's just broad strokes reality. Now, the circumstances that have been created, the systems that have been put into place, the individuals who wish to control scarcity, now, they may have all sorts of ideas about how this cannot be done, but the truth is that even, those who scream about overpopulation and how there's way too many people on the planet and everything else, and I believe that they have been sort of programmed to feed into an agenda to help out with the idea that it's a good thing when so many people die off and suffer. The reality is it's not necessary. There is enough for everyone on this planet right now to not be hungry, to not be homeless, to not be without resource. It's just that simple. Now, does that mean that the circumstance is going to emerge tomorrow? Does that mean that effectively we could see, well, theoretically, yes. Theoretically, if we could all make an agreement to stop killing each other, if we could all theoretically make an agreement that distribution among everyone to be equal and all that kind of, that could happen. Now, I know some people are out there going, oh, you sound like a socialist, communist, whatever, ism. I'm not talking about isms. I'm not talking about anything other than hard facts. There's no reason that this could not be done except for these systems and these other isms which have been put into place. Now, does that mean it's going to happen? No. But could it be done? Yes. So here's the truth about what it is we can do about this system that is in place here. I do believe that if en masse, all of us, the rest of us, not the middle managers and not the elites, obviously, but if all the rest of us collectively turned our force into one particular direction and decided that we were going to abandon the system as it stands and decided that we were going to cooperate and do some of those things I was just talking about, all of this would become meaningless overnight. Could that happen is another question entirely. But is it something that theoretically could be done if you could? Yes, it is, isn't it? So it's kind of a hard place to be in when you see something that can be done. But is it likely? Is it really, truly possible in the world in which we live? Well, that's another story. Is that one of those struggles you kind of have internally every now and then where you got to say, well, listen, I know that we can change all this overnight, but will it get done? Can it really, feasibly, realistically get done? Is that something that you go through as well?
Yes. Yes, I have been concerned with that all my life because I know that there are things we could do as humans because we're all very, very powerful. Even the scriptures showed that. Even God saw that. In the Bible, it said that it says God looked down from heaven upon the earth and saw that the thoughts of men are bad all the time, but that at the time when they were building the Tower of Babel, God said, if you leave mankind alone, there's nothing he can't do. And, he can do whatever he wants to do. And so you divide the language so that, he can't do what he wanted to do. You divide the language at the time of the building of the Tower of Babel, because whatever it is that mankind collectively decides they want to do, they can do. And we've decided a long time ago we want to go into space. Well, now we're in space. We're out there doing things that we are not even told. The people are not even being told what we are capable of doing and are doing right now in space. And so I think, yes, we could change the world. But the last time we actually had a legitimate way to actually change the direction of the human family was back in 1770s when the founding of the United States of America. It was Thomas Paine, the guy who actually came up with the idea and promoted the idea of an American Revolution and come up with the idea of signing a Declaration of Independence and a Constitution. It was Thomas Paine who actually was the brain behind what we call the Great Awakening of the American Revolution to found the United States of America on the basis of law and reason and logic and intelligence. And he said, Thomas Paine wrote, that we now, in 1776, with the founding of the United States of America, he said, we now have the opportunity to completely restart the whole world over again. Because they realized that setting up a country that was based on the freedom of the individual and protecting of individual rights of individual people, that the freedom of mankind would explode all over the earth and it would change the whole destiny of the human race if we were allowed to be free. But this is precisely what the European royalty did not want. They're not interested in their slaves being free. And so that's why Martin Luther King was, one of his famous quotes was that slaves have never gone to their masters and asked for freedom. They don't do that. The only way you get freedom is you take it. You demand it. You demand your freedom, and you do something about it. And that's what happened in 1776. A lot of people decided they'd had enough of European royalty, with kings and queens riding around in golden chariots and flipping their cigarette butts on you and your children. And so they've decided they've had enough. And that's what Thomas Paine said. We have in our hands now the opportunity to start the whole world all over again, because they believed that there was a God who was divinely orchestrating the founding of the United States of America on the basis of human dignity and freedom. And it would have worked. It was on its way to working. People were flocking to this country from all over the world at the founding of this country. People were coming here and then spending whatever they could, whatever they had to get here, to be a part of the great American experiment. But the only problem is that the laws did not stick. What the founding fathers said they wanted and didn't want, the enemies of this country got around it. They went around the founding fathers. And therefore the same tyranny and the same criminal elements that were running all over Europe, and the criminality of Europe, and the elites who were running the show in Europe actually came to America. And the secret societies and the religious orders of Europe, they came to America knowing that you cannot let these people found their own country on freedom and liberty and do their own thing, because they're going to affect Europe, it's going to affect the whole world, and it's most likely going to affect all the royalty of the world. Royalty is above the world. And if you let the common working class people decide that they want to be free, you're going to have a serious problem between the millions and millions of working class people against the handful of the royal people who don't have to work. They let you work for them. And so the royalty of Europe realized that if you let these Americans do what they're doing, there's going to be trouble galore. You're going to have more problems than you could even imagine for the elites. So you cannot let these people do what they're talking about doing. You've got to stop them in their tracks. Well, as it turns out, the same people that were destroying the peoples and the human race of Europe and the rest of the world came here to America and got themselves set up, and they came over with money and power, political power and money, and moved into our little experiment we call America, and they started buying into our system and collectively buying into our world that we were building, and today now run America. So we didn't follow through. We knew who our enemies were. We fought them to even found this country. But I'll be damned if they didn't come in later quietly. They moved in, and they've destroyed our country. They've destroyed our people. They've destroyed our future. They've destroyed everything. And the reason why is because they were the royalty, and they didn't want America to be alive. They didn't want the American people to do what they were almost ready to do, and that is to take over the world for freedom and liberty and justice. And so the founding fathers, most people don't know this, but the founding fathers of this country realized who the real, legitimate, bottom line enemies of America and human dignity and freedom are. And they said they would not allow, this was in the original founding of America, that there were two groups that the Founding Fathers did not want in this country. If you go back and look at the history of America, you will see there were two very large and powerful organizations that the Founding Fathers did not want to have anything to do with, and they did not want them in this country, and you couldn't have them in this country. And that was the Catholic Church. The Vatican was the single biggest enemy of freedom, dignity, and honor the world has ever known. It was a Roman system, a dirty and fascist Roman system of totalitarianism and fascism and slavery in Europe. It was the brains behind the wars, revolutions, the violence, the bloodshed of the world. The Vatican. The Vatican was the biggest criminal organization on the earth, and the Founding Fathers of America realized that, and they said that Catholic Church will not be allowed in this country, period. They want nothing to do with it. People can have their own religion, fine, but the Catholic Church as an organization cannot operate on American property, on American land. They did not want the Vatican having anything to do with this country. Why? Because they knew the Vatican is run by a man we call the Holy Father. And why is he holy? Because he represents the God. So he's a Godfather. You understand what the terms mean. And so we allowed the Catholic Church to come into America a long time ago, and with it came the Mafia, La Cosa Nostra, all the underworld organizations, which are all coming from the Catholic religion, and Southern and South America, Central America. And when America was being founded back east with New England, and of course when Rome moved into Britannia, the Roman Empire moved into Britannia, or the UK, the center of operation for Rome in England was York, England. York, England was the city where Rome officially run the United Kingdom. So Rome actually was dominating the United Kingdom, the UK. And the city where Rome operated from was called York, England. And so today we have something called New York. New York is the Empire State. It represents the Roman Empire. It's the Empire State in New York, the dirtiest, filthiest political underworld organization of organized crime the world has ever known. It is out of New York that the Communist Party has come. It's where the drug running and the drugging of Western civilization goes through New York, the international banking cartels, all of the pagan, filthy, and dirty religions coming out of the Roman Empire, the whole entire complex that we call the United States government today is a Roman fascist Jesuit system of tyranny, and people do not know, they have no idea in the world what is going on in religion on the earth today. All we know is that we just do what we're told to do, because when we're born, we're brought into a system, and we grew up in a system where we never questioned anything, we didn't know anything, and it's just as well we didn't question anything because the adults around us didn't know anything. So nobody can tell you. And the very few people who were wise and intelligent and wise and well informed who did know, they will be killed off. Slowly but surely they will be thrown into prisons and killed off by the conspirators who are trying to overthrow our great country. And this is what's going on today. New York is the center for all of the filthiest, dirtiest stuff going on the earth today. It's the Empire State, the Roman Empire. And today the Empire State is now in decline, just like the Roman Empire was in the 5th century. We are now, as America, in decline. We've lost our freedoms. We've lost our basis for operation. We've lost our industrial. We've lost intelligence. We've lost everything. We've just lost virtually everything that we built up and had going for us. at the founding of this country. We've lost it all because the people who are trying to destroy our country are the Jesuit Roman Catholic system in America. You need to wake up and find out who your enemies really are. The Pope wears a Pope's mitre, that strange headdress the Pope wears. It represents a god named Dagon, D-A-G-O-N. Dagon was a Phoenician, Canaanite, old ancient god from the ancient world 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. Has nothing to do with Jesus, has nothing to do with Christianity whatsoever. The Vatican does not represent Christianity or Jesus. It represents Rome. All roads lead to Rome. Our governmental systems, our corrupt societies, our corrupt laws, drug addiction, alcoholism, murder, violence, wars, all of the corruption of the human race is now centered in New York, the Empire State. And therefore, we now have the United Nations, a conspiratorial apparatus to destroy individual countries and peoples all over the world. United Nations, the country itself is dying because of the UN. It's an incredible story about betrayal and how we got into the mess we're in. And I don't think there's any hope for us to get out of it because the people love the holiness of the church. They love to go to church and worship the Lord. And they think that they're doing something wonderful and holy. And it makes them feel well. It makes them feel good. Never realizing for a moment what the church really is, where it really came from and how it grew out of the Roman Empire. And today, Washington, D.C. is, in fact, the center for the new Roman Empire. And the brains and the money and the organization comes out of New York, the Empire State. My God, what a story there is to tell if people would wake up. But they're not going to wake up because they would much rather have their religions and their holiness, that, like the Bible says, you have chosen for yourselves your teachers. People are not interested in what God is doing in the universe. They're interested in what their teachers tell them. So they go to, and you can't even be a minister in America unless you go to a college and get a degree from the government. It has to come out of New York and Washington, D.C. to get a degree before you can be a minister. So they have Christian universities. All I'm saying is that you need to wake up to who your enemies really are. Your enemy is the religion that you practice today in the world today is referred to as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. All three are religions of an ancient pagan world. And this is what happened in the ancient world. It's happening today. The more we change, the more we stay the same. We're still killing each other over religion because that's what religion is. It is a murderous, death-dealing place on the earth that is destroying the individual and destroying countries. We need to wake up and find out who is really behind the elites. And who do the elites? We talk about the Rothschilds. Well, the actual history of the Rothschild banking family is that they were the bankers for the Vatican. They were handling the Vatican's money. So when you talk about how wealthy and rich the Rothschilds were, they were wealthy and rich because they made money off the Vatican. The Vatican was running the whole entire Roman Empire. Since Caesar fell in the 5th century A.D., the Vatican has for 1,600 years dominated Europe. And for 1,600 years, Europe has dominated the world. All roads lead back to Rome. The Catholic Church is, in point of fact, the outward sign of a very powerful ancient secret society that founded Rome and has been officially destroying our country and our freedoms and everything that we've worked for in this country. And the people love it. The people think it's so holy, they crawl on their knees to the Pope, never realizing he represents God and he's the Holy Father. He's a Godfather. You better wake up and find out who your enemies really are.
Well, absolutely. And, Jordan, what's fascinating to me is that you brought up the Roman Empire several times there, right? And some people have a very superficial view of what the Roman Empire actually was, right? Yeah. And it's amazing to me because it is something that stretched over centuries and went through various sort of incarnations.
That's right.
And because I've studied Roman history extensively, and I'm not saying I'm an expert on Roman history, but I went through it enough to understand that at one point it seemed as though there was a society which was not based on the ruling classes doing exactly what they were doing, but that changed, and they borrowed from the Greeks, and obviously there is a Greek element to this as well, which is never really discussed all that often when it comes to the Roman Empire. Just, stylistically it was similar. No, there's something else going on there.
That's right.
And there's a legendary sort of mythos connected to the formation of the nation-state of Rome. Just like a lot of other nation-states on the planet, apparently, huh? It's really interesting, but that took hundreds of years, hundreds and hundreds. I mean, the span of the Roman Empire, how far is it? It's, 700-800 years easily that the Roman Empire stood, depending on which form it was in. Of course, during its decline, it was completely divided. You had, corruption had entirely eaten even the superstructure of the elitist classes running things. Even that was everything was in a downward spiral by the time we had the Eastern and Western empires, right? Various reformations. We've seen that happen to what we call the United States, but it's only been 200 and, less than 50 years, right? It's almost like, say, 1/3 or maybe even a quarter of the time of the Roman Empire's existence that the United States has gone from this mythical formation. And I'm not even stating that the history, because here's the problem with Roman history. It's very difficult to unpack because I think they've hidden a lot of it. It seems as though unless you're culturally connected to certain things, you don't have a lot of insights as to what went on. It's been glorified unnecessarily in some ways. It's been sanitized. Oh, gee, wait a minute. Same thing has happened to American history. So it's very difficult to really follow what happened here. But when you're talking about a secret society that pre-existed the Roman Empire, it's not as though it was founded because of the Vatican. A lot of people think that the Roman Empire was founded, in order to bolster the Vatican. The Vatican, the Roman Empire, these are merely symptoms of something that existed previous.
That's right.
And I don't know really what the ultimate root is. Now, there's a legendary sort of root to some of the secret societies that was brought up here. And actually, two different guys named William sent in questions related to this. And I want to get to it right now because I think it's going to be appropriate and it's going to link together perfectly with what you're talking about. And they want to know about Hiram Abiff. Let's see. I was wondering if Jordan knew about. All right, let's see here. The architect killed by 3 ruffians. Okay, this is a Masonic legend,
Freemasonry came out of the Vatican. Freemasonry was born, nurtured, and raised in the Vatican by the Knights Templars, the Knights of the Temple of Solomon. The Knights of the Temple of Solomon have dominated the whole human race. And so what we call the Vatican is actually an ancient secret society that came out of the ancient world. And today, America is the Roman Empire. And like the Roman Empire, we are now in decline and we're now falling. I mean, it's just an incredible story of betrayal of the human family and betrayal of the Americans who died trying to keep us free, and the people who served in the military to protect this country are now in the military to protect the elites and the Roman Empire. They're not doing anything. The military in America are not allowed to do anything to protect the American people. They are bought and paid for by the government that runs the world. They run the earth out of New York, the international banking cartels. And boy, when you start getting into the history of a world that we live in and where the wars have come from and who finances them, and what the military today is doing in America, they're not doing anything to protect the American people. The military in this country is a disgrace because they have been taken over by our enemies. Our enemies run our country. Our enemies are not at the door, they run the country. And today, the military is not doing anything to protect America. I mean, even when the president wants to send the military to do something to protect our borders, the whole democratic process, rant and raves, they want to kill the president, get rid of him. They don't want this country protected. The military is doing what they're told to do because they're bought and paid for. And this is why I'm just amazed at what we call the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Who are these guys we call the Joint Chiefs of Staff? The heads of the Army, the head of the Navy, the head of the Marines, the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They are the military head in this country. And what have they done to defend our republic? Zero, nothing. They're on the take. They're a scummy group. As far as I'm concerned, the Joint Chiefs of Staff represents treason in America. Where are the troops to protect the American people from the enemies of America? They just wine and dine themselves and get their stars and little brownie points and wear their little badges and do zero, nothing to protect the American people from the enemies of this country. And it's extraordinarily incredible that the people today in America do not see that the military is out all over the world for the elites who run this operation we call America. And the military is out all over the world doing the will of the elites who run this country from behind the scenes. The secret societies have the power to control the military-industrial complex.
Right, and this is why when you ask yourself, well, this is why when people ask themselves, it doesn't make any sense that the military is doing this. Well, that's because you're still thinking that the military is there to serve and protect you. That's what your problem is. Because otherwise, if you stop thinking of it that way, it might make a whole lot more sense as to why we're going into certain nations and doing certain things. And here's the thing about that. Beyond the military, though. And one could, again, you can draw corollaries throughout the rise and fall of the Roman Empire to exactly what Jordan's talking about. I think that would be an interesting discussion one day to have the comparative timeline between the United States and Rome, as it were. Yep. And, hey, look, century 1 to century 3, okay, that really represents the first 50 years of America's existence. This kind of thing, I'm not saying that that's a direct correlation. I'm saying that, as an example, that would probably be almost right. But what's interesting here is that that's all true. But I want to get to this because this is a multifaceted question here. And it links again to the fact that you're talking about the Knights Templar and, which were the guys, the red shields, so to speak. The Red Cross, which we still see today on the white background. Those guys. Okay. Well, here's the thing. They want to know if Freemasonry actually comes from a Christian facility. And as you just stated, it comes from the Vatican. So there's that. Let's see. Also, on a side note, they're asking about certain things that they've read in esoteric volumes that have occasionally leaked out of the Freemason book collections, if you will. Now, I've seen one of these Bibles, Jordan. I've only seen one in one person's possession in my lifetime, but fascinating thing. Have you ever seen a Freemason Bible?
Oh yeah, I've got one. Yep.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. It is nothing like the Bible you find in your church. Just so you know, wholly different illustrations and style to it, Jordan. Wouldn't you say?
Yes.
But they ask about Hiram Abiff, the connection to that, the connection to the to what is encoded in the Bible of the Freemasons about him. Is he just another figure very much like the Moses figure, who they're also asking, is that character more of an Islamic figure than a whatever? I think that you have exhaustively gone through that in the past on this show, but if you'd like to address it again. But what of the figure of Hiram Abiff? Do you figure that is yet again another made-up sort of character?
Yeah, of course. It's just a made-up myth. It's just a made-up story, just like all the great stories of religion today are all just, as I've said before, they are stories. They are metaphors. They are symbolic metaphors, symbolic stories that are trying to tell you something. They're telling you something in secret. And so all the stories in the Bible, I believe, are metaphors. And I've said this before, I'll say it again, and you can think what you want. I don't care what you think. It doesn't matter what you think. What matters is what is the actual history of the religious belief systems in America and in the world today. When you do some serious, intellectually honest research, you will find that 99% of all the stories in religions are nothing more than made-up metaphors. Mankind has come up with their own stories, and they put in these stories all kinds of so-called history which never happened. And today we are living by these same metaphors and symbolic stories that never happened. Today we have Jews all over Jerusalem and all over Israel going to what they call the Wailing Wall. And they are there at the Holy of Holies. The most holy place in all of Jerusalem is the Wailing Wall. Why? Because it's the wall of King Solomon. It's King Solomon's temple. Well, first of all, there was no King Solomon. And second of all, the wall that we call the Wailing Wall is a Roman fort. The Romans built that wall. It was part of a Roman fort called Fort Antonia. Go do some research and you'll find the Wailing Wall does not have anything at all to do with Judaism or Jews, period. That's why today the Jews are crying and calling out to God and praying and putting their prayers on the wall, never realizing it's a Roman wall, it's a Roman fort. Go back to your encyclopedia and do something really strange. Read a book about Fort Antonia.
Right.
Fort Antonia is a Wailing Wall of a Roman fort that has nothing to do with Judaism at all. And this is why, precisely why, the Jewish world is crawling on their knees to the Wailing Wall and crying out to God at the Wailing Wall, and nothing but bloodshed and war and violence. The more people pray, the worse our situation begins to grow. The worse we're getting every day with wars and drugs and conflicts all over the world, because the human race cannot wake itself up to realize that the religious institutions that we humans have put together are based on ancient, prehistoric, and ancient symbols and words and terms that have been given to us by the secret societies who have founded the Roman Empire. They've founded the Roman Church. They have founded Judaism. Mm-hmm. They have founded, these secret societies have actually founded the Islamic world. The whole story of Muhammad and the Islamic religion is nothing more than a very ancient, old pagan religion going back thousands of years before Muhammad and Islam ever existed. It's been known by people who teach these subjects in universities and colleges. But the people out on the street, they don't know. They've never been told. There was no King Solomon. So you couldn't have King Solomon's temple if there was no King Solomon. It never existed. Well, there was no King David. There was no King David. Right. And best part is that there was never, ever an ancient Israel. So when you hear preachers and ignorant preachers talking about this and that happened in ancient Israel, and the ancient Israel did this and that, and the Lord did this with the ancient Israelites, there was, in fact, historically speaking, no ancient Israel ever existed. Period. End of sentence. And you need to wake up and find out that you have bought into a story that was not true, just as all the other religions have given you stories that are not true. You have something we call Christmas for Christianity, and we have churches and houses at Christmas who put Christmas lights on the trees and Christmas lights on the houses. But then the Jews also have a celebration at the same identical time at the winter solstice. They call it the Festival of Lights. The Festival of Lights for Jews. Well, isn't it interesting that the Festival of Lights is precisely what Christians do? They light up Christmas trees, they light up their houses, they light up their homes, they light up their businesses. It's a festival of lights. It has nothing to do with the Jewish religion. The Festival of Lights in Judaism is nothing but an ancient pagan celebration of the sun coming back and the sun dying in the winter in the south, going down to the southern hemisphere. The sun dies in the southern hemisphere, and then when it comes back to life in December 25th is when it moves one degree northward. They celebrate the sun is now born again. And therefore, there's a story about a man they called Jesus. He was referred to as God's Son. S-U-N, not S-O-N. God's Son, though he is the light of the world. Well, of course, the S-U-N is the light of the world. Christianity is the worship of the sun. And the Jewish religion is a potluck dinner. The whole of Judaism is a collection of all of the old ancient cults of the ancient prehistoric world, all rolled into one neat religion. It's called Judaism. It's actually the worship of the sun. It's actually the worship of the moon. It's the worship of the stars. It's the worship of Saturn. It's the worship of, it's filled with all kinds of ancient pagan religions, all molded into one called Judaism. And we look at Judaism as something very important. It's the actual basis for our religion. And Christianity goes back to the ancient Israel. Ancient Israel never existed. There was no King Solomon. There was no King David. One of the oldest Bibles I had many years ago, I can't remember the name of the Bible, but in this old translation of the Bible, everywhere in the Old Testament that it spoke about King David, it didn't say King David in this old translation. It said King Druid, not D-A-V-I-D, D-R-U, Druid. King Druid, not David, D-A-V. It was a Druidian. Druidian goes back to the worship of the sun and sun worship and the worship of the gods in India. Druidian, not David. And so Judaism and Christianity and Islam are all three based on Hindu. So if you want to worship the original God, go back to the Hindu temples and worship there, because that's what you're doing if you're a Jew or a Christian today. You're worshiping an old, ancient Hindu concept of the powers of the universe. It's extraordinarily stuff that's been hidden for years, and it is now, I believe, an idea whose time has come to tell the people the truth. There is not any value in Judaism, Christianity, or Islam. They're all three based on Hinduism, and they're all three nothing more than the religion of a book. All three require a book, the Old Testament, or the New Testament for Christianity, or the Book of Islam for Islam. So it's all three called the people of the book. They need to have a book to base their religion on, a book, if you can believe it. And they are now having wars all over the world with bloodshed. The whole of mankind is crawling around on their knees in the dark, killing each other, dying of ignorance and ill-informed stupidity because of a book.
Right.
The Jews have a book, and the Christians have a book, and Islam has a book. They're called the people of the book. You just need to do some homework. You need to go onto the web and look up ancient pagan religions and find all the things that you believe in your religion today came out of India, came out of Egypt, came out of the Middle East. What a story. It's about time that people wake up. I've been trying to tell people what's going on this earth, and I've tried to do it tactfully. I've tried to do it without hurting people's feelings or causing them any hurt by telling them the truth. But I'm telling you, there's nothing left now. We've just sold our souls to the devil. We've sold our souls. We've sold our country out. We've sold our children out. We've sold our morals and ethics. We've been sold out a long time ago. And the only hope for the human race is that we wake up and say, no more of this crap. No more of this old ancient bull. I mean, the Jews have in the Old Testament that they were worshiping of the golden calf, the golden bull. Well, if you look in the Encyclopedia of Religion, you will find out that Jehovah, the great God of the Hebrews, was always pictured in the ancient world as a bull. This is where we get the idea that it's all a bunch of bull. It's all full of bull. Because Jehovah or Yahweh was always pictured as a bull worship. Why? Because the Jews were worshiping God in the age of Taurus, the constellation of Taurus the bull. And when the age of Taurus the bull ran out, and the new age that was coming in was called the age of Aries, Aries the ram. Moses comes down and sees the Jews worshiping Taurus the bull, and they said to Moses that we've always worshipped God with the golden calf for 150 years, over 2,000 years. We worship our God by the worship of a golden calf. The golden is the sun, and the calf is the bull. The golden calf is Taurus, the constellation of Taurus. When the sun is in the constellation of Taurus, you're worshiping the golden calf. And then when Moses comes down, he brings a new religion. Moses was a brand new dispensation to the Jewish world. A new religion based on the next constellation of the zodiac, which is Aries, the ram. So now the Jews have to stop worshiping the golden calf, and now they have to blow the ram's horn, the shofar. And so today the Jews blowing the ram's horn. They think that's so holy and so, and it's all very, very Jewish to blow the ram's horn. And they got grown men with long beards, old men who actually believe that they're doing something holy by blowing the ram's horn. It's incredible. The ram's horn comes back, we call it the shofar, goes back to the worship of Aries, the ram god. And so God is a father, and so in the ancient world, your father was Ab, A-B, and there was and the God of the ram god was your father. So the word is A-B-R-A-M, Abram. Abram becomes Abraham. Abraham had a wife called Sarah. No, the priesthood in India today is called Brahma. Brahmins, and the Brahmins would not have anything to do with the common working class people. They call them untouchables. They don't want to touch or have anything to do in India with the regular common people. Why? Because the regular common people were just dirty, working class, unclean, unshaven, dirty, working class people. And the Brahmins were the high priest of God. They were referred to as God's holy nation, God's holy people. And they were told not to have anything to do with the working class, regular people. So that's the same way today in Judaism. The Jews are God's chosen people. They're not to have anything to do with the Gentile people. Don't have anything to do with the Gentile people of the nations. Why? Because they're just a bunch of dogs. It's called goyim. Goyim in Hebrew means an animal, a bull or an animal or a cow. So therefore you are nothing more than an animal. And just as in India, the people of India are nothing more than just dogs and animals to the priest of the Brahmins. And you put an A in front of Brahmin, it becomes Abram. Abram. And therefore in the Bible it says Abram was Abraham's name until it was changed. God changed Abram's name to Abraham. So therefore Abraham and his wife Sarah. No, the India religion today, the Brahmins have a goddess in their religion. The Brahmins know about a goddess in their religion called Saraswati. Saraswati is the same as Abraham and Sarah. Abraham is a Brahmin, or Abraham, and Sarah is Saraswati, the goddess, the holy goddess in the Brahmin religion. Wake up and understand that the world we call today the world of religion is actually the world of ignorance, ill-informed, unread stupidity, and that's why today all over the world Christians and Jews and Islamic people are praying for holiness, they're praying for justice, they're praying for peace, they're praying for protection to their gods, and all the time they're praying, the bombs are dropping and the bloodshed is pouring over the earth. Why? Because they are praying to the same old pagan gods that we've always been sucked into. The people today are still worshiping the same paganry they've always worshipped, and they have no idea in the world what they're doing, and they don't want to hear the truth. I told you.
Yeah, and you know what the bottom line is here is that, you know, when you talk about a people that are blowing the ram's horn, that are praying to Ares, well, you know, I do remember in my study of Greek orders that Ares is the god of war. So, you know, and meanwhile, when you take a look at the different adaptations, the different interpretations of that same deity throughout history, it's the god of war. So you're praying for peace to the god of war. Gee, I wonder why there's struggles. And actually, we have questions. And this is a thought that occurred to me many years ago, but it's something that has been put into further context with my guest, Jordan Maxwell. We're going to take a break here. But I do advise you to go to jordanmaxwellshow.com to follow up even more on this. We're going to have another hour with Jordan here on this particular Monday, and I'm going to get to these questions about modern times, which Jordan has just intuitively sort of led right now here at Ocelli.com. Of course, this is a Monday episode, and it being January 14th of 2019, allegedly, according to that thing we call a calendar, it is an interesting time for certain. Why would that be, Chuck? What's particularly interesting? Well, you know, current events is not necessarily what we're discussing here today. Or are we? Jordan Maxwell is with me. We're discussing religion. We're continuing on with that series. This is part 17. And, you know, it's really fascinating to me that people's questions are dovetailing together. I'm getting groups of questions about what's going on regarding today's events. Well, not necessarily today as in Monday's events, but the events of today in general. The concept of terrorism, the concept of this clash of civilizations, the idea that there is a cultural divide because of these religious precepts and all that. Well, you know what? You could study this a whole lot more in depth if you go to jordanmaxwellshow.com and go join the Research Society. That's at jordanmaxwellshow.com. I'll provide you guys with the link, with the podcast anyways, to make sure that you can go directly and join the Research Society and go to Jordan's, website. Not only that, but there's videos over there which you can, download and stream right away. Those are there for purchase for a nominal fee. You can make a donation. You can send an email to Jordan. You can join the Research Society, but all of it begins at jordanmaxwellshow.com. Jordan Maxwell Show, put it all together as one word, jordanmaxwellshow.com. That is the only website that is actually Jordan Maxwell's. And accept no substitutions, my friends. Anyway, Jordan is with me, and I am going to get these questions in as quickly as I can. And I have this feeling that it's going to take up the rest of the hour. But do feel free to email Jordan or myself. Info@ocelli.com is just fine. Go to the chat room at ocelli.com. Sometimes I have Twitter open. I don't have it open tonight. But when I have Twitter open, I'll take Twitter questions as well. But either way, I mean, get involved and be part of the show and make it go in the direction that it needs to go. Ask the questions, and if they're relevant, I will enter them into the conversation, making it easier on Jordan.
I would say that there's a point I would like to make before we get into the questions. Because once we get into the questions, I know we'll have plenty of them. But there's a point I'd like to make, and that is in the Bible there are two terms that are used. One is a disciple, and the other is the word apostle. The word there's a big difference between a disciple and an apostle. A disciple is one who picks a teacher to be his master, and so he follows that particular person and what that man or woman is saying, and guides their life by what they're hearing from their teacher, so that they are listening to the disciple. The disciple is listening to a teacher. And so if you're a disciple, you've picked one person to be your teacher. But the word apostle in the Bible comes from a Greek word meaning one who is called out. One who is called out. As if you were, say, in the military, and you're standing on a rapt attention on the field with 100 other soldiers, and you're waiting for the general to come. And all of a sudden comes up the limo with the 5-star general, and he gets out, and everyone's standing in attention. And he walks around looking at the troops, and he picks you. He points at you and said, come here. And so he picks you out of the group and tells you, go over there and sit in the car. So therefore you have been picked by the general. Therefore, the word apostle means one who was picked, one who was called out of the world. But a disciple is one who picks the teacher. An apostle is the one who's picked by the teacher. The teacher picks the disciple. And so this is what is important for you to understand, that we are almost all people in religion are disciples. They're disciples of different religions. They're disciples of Billy Graham. They're disciples of this group or that group or this teacher or that teacher. But they're not following the Great Spirit. They're not following the Great Spirit. So what you need to understand, I have said this before on other broadcasts, I'll say it again, in order to understand apostle, it's as if you were a young man who was in the military. You joined the military or you're in the military, and the first day you are on the bus, you're going to a military base for the first day and the first time. And when you get off the bus on the military base, you tell the officer in charge, you tell him, look, since I'm going to be in the military, I need to go to Washington, D.C., I need to work with the Pentagon. And so he will then tell you, fine, and he will then have some other military guys come over and walk you off and take you out behind the building and then knock your teeth out and give you a couple of bloody black eyes. Why? Because You don't tell power where you're going. Power tells you. So that's the name of the tune in Christianity and in religion. You don't tell God anything. You don't tell anybody nothing. God calls you. So if you are a disciple, you have decided to pick somebody to listen to. And so you are disciplining yourself according to what you're hearing from that teacher. Right. That's why they call you a disciple. You're disciplining yourself to follow the teachings that you pick, the person you pick. But if you have in your spirit as an individual, you as an individual are spiritually very concerned about religion, about the history of religion, about the history of the world we live in, and where you came from and your children, where they're going and what's going to happen to the human family. If you're really concerned, then what you're doing is you're showing the spirit that you are very concerned, and they need to realize that your undying concern that you have for all these spiritual questions is being put into you by God. You are not picking God. God is picking you. Right. Because most people couldn't care less. They don't know nothing. They don't understand nothing, and they're not interested in nothing. They got their baseball games, their football games. They don't need God. They don't need to ask anything. And if they are interested, they'll pick who they're interested in. They'll be disciples. But if you're an apostle, it means God has picked you. You don't pick the teacher. The teacher picks you. So therefore, if you have this really strong feeling of wanting to know, and very few people do, but if you are one of them that has this very strong, continual, feeling in your mind that you want to know what the real truth is and what's going to happen to you and what's going to happen to our country and to your family, then you are being called by God, so to speak. The Spirit is calling you. You have been picked. Therefore, you are coming out of the lunacy that we call the human race. You have been picked. Somebody higher than you has picked you. You didn't decide that you want to know. The God himself has picked you and put it into you so that you want to know. So don't think it's because you want to know you decided anything. No, the way spirituality actually works, that's why I'm saying that the whole human race cannot be saved. You're not going to be saved. You're only going to be saved from this world of darkness if somebody higher than you wants you to come out. They want you to listen. They want you to know the real truth. Then you are now continually worried about these things in your mind. It's because God is calling you. Most people are not called.
Interesting side note to what you're saying too, Jordan, is that quite honestly and frankly, the military is a religious order, and religious order is military. And
that's right.
People don't necessarily understand that, but let me just throw one thing into the equation here, which everybody knows, but everybody seems to forget when it comes to this. You swear an oath when you are inducted into the military. Even if you're drafted, you swear an oath.
That's right.
If you do not swear the oath, if you go through every other part of the process but do not swear the oath,
you're not in.
You're not in. Now, this is rather curious, isn't it? So let's remember that both things are correct. And as far as disciples go, I find it interesting also that some of the people that are viewed as some of the darkest individuals who are speaking evil thoughts on the planet sometimes tell us the greatest truths. You have to look at the way the word disciple has been utilized. Just like taking a look at the name of that fort that the Wailing Wall actually is. Take a look at the name Anthony. Antonio and Antonin. In fact, all of these sorts of things that are rooted in that word. And no, I'm not going to give you the information. I want you to go look at it for yourself and find out what that actually means. And then maybe you get a greater context as to why people are going to the Wailing Wall.
Yep.
Anyway.
That's exactly right.
These things are all correct, and it's interesting because military is one of those things that's discussed often. And for those that say, okay, maybe I'm backtracking on what I've said before regarding this, look, I do not doubt the honest and good intent of a lot of people that choose to serve in the military. I don't at all. I've said that many times. I feel, in fact, that it's a great betrayal, that they are conned into doing what it is they do. But I also feel the very same way about most of these organized religions. There's a lot of people with very good intentions that wish to, be church active, that go out and do things like literally do good deeds. They feed poor people. They give clothes to people who need them. They do things in their communities. They do that because their intents are good. They do not know what they are really serving, just like the military people, because it's based on the same concept. Anyway.
Precisely.
So this, I don't sound crazy to you at all, do I, Jordan?
If you remember what Jesus said when he looked at the people, supposedly, in the scripture, he says, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." And this is exactly correct. Forgive the people today in the churches because they know not what they do. The Bible says, has God saying, "My people are dying from a lack of knowledge." My people are dying. He doesn't say the Buddhists are dying from a lack of knowledge. The Hindus, no. My people are dying from a lack of knowledge, wisdom, understanding, reading a book. Think for yourself. My Lord, when you find out what is really going on this earth that you didn't know anything about, you're going to be shocked out of your system. You're going to be shocked out of your mind when you find out what's really happening to America right now and where it's going and where we as a human family on the earth, where we're heading. It's all been well planned a long time ago by very powerful secret societies who founded this country and who are now taking over our government. They've taken over our systems, our institutions, our education, banking. All of our institutions that we use to guide our society are now in the hands of people who want to destroy this country. They want to destroy you as an American, in America, period. Why? Because you've made a lot of enemies all over the world. Why? Because you are free and you have become wealthy and you have become powerful. And why? Because you've had the freedom and liberty and justice to do just that. But the people of the world see you becoming very powerful and very wealthy, and they don't like it. And the elites, what we call the elites, do not want you to be free at all. The Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, and all the other international banking elites all working for one thing, to promote your destruction. We don't have national leaders. We have misleaders, people who are planning your demise as they are taking your votes and smiling and waving at you. And at night while you're asleep, they are having their secret meetings about what they're going to do to rape you and steal from you and kill you and murder your children. And they're going to start wars and promoting violence all over the world. And the same South American and Central American countries, which we refer to as Catholic, which are dominated by the Vatican, are also the drug runners, the people who are raising all the drugs to be sold into America, to drug America. You want to drug your victims before you rape them. So we're being drugged by the countries in South and Central America and Mexico, which we know are dominated by the Catholic Church.
Well, make no mistake, there is no institution in this hemisphere which is not corrupted It doesn't matter what it is. The legal system, sure. The government, absolutely. The medical system, truly. All of the corporate facilities which are there to do whatever it is they say they're there to do. Notice everything has a toxic element to it that just seems to be there, almost perfectly, lined up with all these other institutions to make sure that there is nothing which is entirely clean or helpful. Everything has a very serious price attached to it. Sure, we'll give you cheap food, but it's going to kill you. Sure, we'll give you, medicine in some ways, but even if you can afford it, it's probably going to kill you too, because half the time we don't really care what it does to anybody because it's there to make money. The military needs to make its money regardless of whether there is a just reason to defend ourselves or not. So on and so on and so on. And this is the way it was done, not by accident, not over time, simply because people are lazy, but because this was the design.
That's right. It was designed to do that. It was designed to be who we are today. Absolutely.
And what's interesting here is again, these questions, and I'm going to tie them all together. Art and a couple of other individuals have asked about basically the scriptures and modern times. Now, there's a lot of people out there, especially these, and why did I just chortle at the thought for a moment? Because I just ran a very quick little slideshow in my head of various televangelists, really quickly there, and I just, I smirk and I chuckle at them because, they're ridiculous human beings, the majority of them.
Oh, God, yes.
So I was thinking to myself of people like, Hagee and, guys from the past like Swaggart, who I used to find rather entertaining. But, Jim Baker, even Billy Graham. All of these guys, these major league preachers, right? They always tell you about how, and the Jehovah's Witnesses, they'll knock on your door if they can find you and they're not afraid of you. They don't come to my door anymore, Jordan. But, they learned. But the thing is, there are people at all times coming to you and telling you that this is the end of days. It has been foretold in the scriptures. They often point to the book of Revelations. They talk about all of these different areas in the Bible that are about death and destruction and the coming apocalypse, so on and so on and so on, which, by the way, not a story which originated in the Bible, just so you know.
That's right.
But here's the thing. Do we see something in the scriptures? Because these were not written just as a fanciful story. Do we see something in the scriptures that appears to be a really good descriptor for what we see related to the church, the corrupt power struggles, the giant nation, which is the United States? We are the empire of the world because we are in almost every country with our military presence in one way or another, et cetera, et cetera. What do you know of references that you could give to people where it is described in scriptures, this particular time period and, the time leading up to it and all of that? Like I said, most people will tell you about Revelations or, if you're Hagee, you got your Israeli and American flag together and you think you're doing a great patriotic service. But anyway, let's put those guys aside. Is there something that you would point people to that describes what we're watching unfold on the planet today?
Yes. Something very important, yes. If you go on my website, jordanmaxwellshow.com, you will see an advertisement, a little banner, saying that you can join my Research Society website. Join my research website, and you will find all kinds of documents, incredible pictures showing you all of the profound lies and deception and things that you've been told that were not true. I've been doing this for almost 60 years now. I've been trying to wake the people of this world up to what's actually going on, and I've paid a terrible price for it. I'm now close to 80 years old, broke with nothing. I'm trying desperately to do what I do before I leave this world, because I believe that it was given to me to try and wake up the people around the world to what's actually, in fact, happening to the human family. where we've come from, where we are now, and where we're going. And if you go on my research website and you join it, there are two places that I think you need to go to first. One is one of the divisions of my research society. You will find I have divided all of the different subjects into different folders, and you check the folder you're interested in and click on it, and it will open up a world of research to you on that subject. And so if you join my research society, first of all, go to the audio video folder. And when you open it up, the very first lecture you will hear is a 2.5-hour lecture that was done back in 1966. 1966, almost what? I don't even know how long ago that would be. Over 50 years ago. In 1966, there was a man who recorded a 2.5-hour lecture. It was actually over 8 hours, but it was boiled down to a 2.5-hour lecture on what is going on the earth with America and where we came from, where are we now, and where are we going. It was the most devastating thing I have ever heard. It changed my life. I was absolutely struck by this lecture. It was the most extraordinary unfolding of knowledge and wisdom I have never heard before about who we are, what's going on with this country, and where is it going. It changed my life instantly. It just shocked me. And it started me because I was already talking about secret societies and giving lectures as far back as 1960 and 61 on the ancient cults and the ancient religions of the world. And I knew that the world I lived in was corrupt through and through, but I had never heard this particular lecture. And so if you go on my website, Jordan Maxwell Show, and you will see an advertisement for my research website, join it, and go to the audio video, which is the very first one, I think. And when you open it up, the first one will be a lecture, 2.5 hours. It's on the web. And so I finally got it put on the web. And now you can go and listen to what I heard some 50 years ago, over 50 years ago, well over 50 years ago, almost 60 years ago, 1966. And it's an incredible story about how the world you live in actually works. And it will blow your mind, I guarantee you, if you are intellectually honest and if you're educated enough to handle the real truth, which most people aren't. They will hear it and don't know they don't have the faintest idea what they're hearing, and it just sounds crazy. But if you're intellectually honest and educated, listen to that audio lecture on my website, on my research website, and it will absolutely blow you away. This man, as far back as 1966, many years ago, already knew where we were going and what was going to happen, and it's exactly what's happening today. And he tells you who's doing it and how they're doing it and why and who's financing it and where it's going. And it's an extraordinary education right there on my research website. And then while you're on my research website, you might want to go to another folder. It says it's called important, what do they call it? Important lectures or interesting articles. That's the name of it. Interesting articles.
Right.
And on interesting articles, I have 2 or 3 major articles right up in the front, which will absolutely blow you away. Things you have never heard before that were documented from the Washington, D.C. documents that will extraordinarily, just blow you away, that you've never heard before. I have taken the last 60 years of my life looking for all of the dark secrets of government, religion, finance, banking, and where this world has come from and what is it doing now, and it's all there on my research website. If you really want to know the truth, if you really want to hear the real stuff, something I'm telling you that is so extraordinary, you need to go on my website and join my research website and listen to the first audio on the audio video folder. There are also, I want to say, 2 videos I have that are being streamed on my website. If you go to Jordan Maxwell Show, you will see on the right-hand side of the home page 2 videos that are being streamed. They are separate from my Research Society. You don't get those on the Research Society. They are separate, and you can watch them, but on the Research Society there is a audio-video place, and you listen to the first audio, listen to maybe all of them. All of these different audios on my audio-video page are extraordinary stuff.
Right. There is an amazing array of stuff there. And also the other folders, by the way, under because I'm looking at them right now, because I'm in there, by the way, guys. Yeah, I actually am part of the Jordan Maxwell Research Society, and you guys might really want to consider that if you haven't done it already, because the other folders here are called, let's see, Bits of History, Did You Know? God's Holy Word, Have you ever wondered? Now, these sound like fanciful sort of titles. They're not. When you go in, it's some really interesting stuff. Even the graphic on the page describing something very interesting about your computer is fascinating, honestly. But you got highly recommended materials. Let's see. Well, you got artwork from you as well, but also there's pictures with a message, quotes of importance, and there's different things about religion, different things about history, different things about government. Some of it is, like you say, you got the audio-video section, but there's a lot of visual elements here where you've got images, you've got articles, you've got references. Matter of fact, I think there's even a couple of just whole books in here.
I put some of my books in there for free.
Yeah, that are here for free. So, I mean, automatically you've got some books. You've got this audio-video section. And, like you said, there's this other section with the 2 videos that are streaming right now. And you're going to add more as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We want to add as much as we can. I'm going to be adding, but just understand that the 2 videos you see on my homepage are separate from the Research Society.
Right.
The Research Society is cram-filled with all kinds of research material, and I only have one webmaster, and he only has 8 hours a day, and there's only so much you can do in a day's time, and so he's got huge amounts of material to put on my website, on that research website for me. I don't do any of it. I have a webmaster. I have to pay him to do it. But he's putting on all of my research stuff from over the years. He's trying to put it on little by little. It's all coming on, and one day soon it's going to be monstrous. It's already huge. It's going to be monstrous soon. And it's got really interesting stuff, especially if you're religious. Go on the religious symbolism. Well, I don't remember what the name of that folder was, but it's in there. It's on religion, and it's all the stories you've been told about the Bible and been told about religion, where they really came from, and the pictures what the real story is, and where it really came from.
Well, there's two sections that actually touch on that, which is hidden stuff in religion. First of all, shows you part of that.
That's it. And that's it. Hidden stuff in religion.
And there's also pictures with a message.
Yeah.
Which, again, I think both folders actually touch on that, where you get different things about hidden symbolism. And like I said, it's just at the beginning of the page. There's a little graphic there that explains something about your computer. And I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's rather fascinating.
Yep, it sure is.
So anyway, like I said, there is just immense information here. And yeah, the last folder, by the way, I said, I know there's a couple of books in here. The last folder is free ebooks. There's a ton of them there. So anyway, it is what it is. I'm just saying that this is one of the things that I'm looking at the page right now because I'm a member. So there you go, guys. I definitely would suggest it. But anyway, but that lecture at the very top there from over 52 years ago now is says it better than you'd be able to capsulize it here as far as what's going on and where to look exactly in the scriptures and stuff, huh?
It is the most incredible lecture I have ever heard, and even today, after hearing it for over 50 years, I still say, when I listen to it today, it's mind-boggling. It's the most incredible expose on how this world really works. What's really actually, in fact, going on if you can handle it. If you can't handle the truth, a lot of people, I've said it before, a lot of children are frightened of the dark. But what's really pathetic is when adults are frightened of the light. People don't want to hear the truth. But if you really want to know what's going on, go to that first folder with audio video and listen to the first 2.5 hour lecture. And if that doesn't set you back about 10 years growth, nothing's going to. If you're intellectually honest and bright enough to understand what's being said, it's going to scare you to death. It's the most incredible expose of the world we live in today and who we are today and why and where it's going. This man who did this was an extraordinary mind. He's no longer with us, of course. But what a mind he had. He knew what was actually going on, and he told us. For the first time, you will find out what the world is really all about. You need to go and listen to it.
Right. Now, I'm taking a look at that, by the way, and it says 1967, actually.
I got it in 67, but it was actually recorded in 66.
Okay. No, I was just trying to figure that out. If maybe maybe they need to go to another one. But you are talking about the speech
illuminati
from Mr. Fagan, yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. No, just checking because I'm looking. Like I said, I'm looking at these things as you're speaking about them. And if you, the listener, were also a member of the Research Society, you know exactly what we're talking about. It is amazing.
And then there's also a series there done by another doctor from back in 1959 and 60 who did about 6 one-hour lectures, at least 1 hour, maybe they're 90 minutes apiece. There's about 6 or 7 90-minute lectures done by a professor from Wayne State University explaining the world you live in. It's the most extraordinary stuff you're ever going to hear. He explains how the world was built and how we are today operating around the world. And for the first time, you will see for the first time what's actually going on the earth. And I knew about this back in 1960. And I kept it. And I put it on my research website because I think it's extraordinary stuff that people need to know about. And when they ask you, well, what's going on? Well, go listen to those 2 sets of lectures, and you'll find out what's going on. It's all on my Research Society, and I want to thank you for giving me a time to plug it because I'm putting all of my research onto that website because I know I'm not going to be here much longer. And I know that the world is dying in the darkness that they're in, and I want to enlighten my fellow man, the people who want to know. If you really want to know, and if the Spirit is guiding you and calling you, that you should know about what's happening to the world you live in, what's going to happen to you, you need to go back and listen to these 2 series of lectures.
Really quickly, I just wanted to let you know that somebody in the chat room says that they're joining the Research Society now because they want to go and hear that lecture. I've also got another individual who's asking a interesting question that I think we might have covered before, but just really quickly, I want to throw it at you because, as I said, anything that's relevant, I will put it into play. Yep. Here we go. Did Jordan consult the folks that made Zeitgeist, or did they exploit his work? Question.
They exploited my work, but on another major radio show many years ago, you would know it if I told you the name of the show. as a major radio show. The producer, his name was Peter something. I can't remember the producer of Zeitgeist. I'm trying to remember his name. He was a guest on this radio show. And the host of the show asked him, where did you come by this knowledge? Where did you get it from? And he said, it's all based on the work of Jordan Maxwell. I've just been listening to Jordan for many years. I decided that since he hasn't put it into a video, I will. And he says, so it's all based on him. And I can send you that clip if you want to hear it yourself. I'll just send you the clip. And you can hear the Peter Joseph was the guy's name. Peter Joseph was the producer of Zeitgeist. And he said, I did Zeitgeist. It's all, period, based on Jordan Maxwell's work. He was the one that incited me to do this. After hearing him for so many years, I decided since he hasn't done anything with this work on a video, I will. I took all of his work and put it into a video called Zeitgeist. So I was, in fact, the reason for the video being made to start with, according to the producer. There are other people who tried to copy me that are on there, and well,
in fact, they even use clips of you in the movie.
Yeah. Mm. And it was really an extraordinary event. I didn't know anything about this movie. I didn't know anything about Zeitgeist. He just used my voice from different radio shows that I have done. The Peter Joseph, the producer, used my voice and my talking about different subjects, and then created Zeitgeist, which was heard by, I don't know, over 100 million people around the world. And it also, incidentally, whether you know it or not, Zeitgeist, the movie, also gave birth to a political party called the Zeitgeist Party. Around the world, I think it was 37 different countries, there is a Zeitgeist political movement. And universities and colleges and schools, it's called the Zeitgeist movement, based on Jordan Maxwell's work.
Well, and also what piggybacked onto that is the Venus Project, which right. which again is interesting work when you talk about Jacques Fresco and his concepts, but that is in the later incarnations of Zeitgeist. All of the bedrock material is really you, but then they sort of offer Fresco as a solution to a lot of the things that are illing the planet,
Yeah, and I didn't have anything to do with Zeitgeist 2 or 3 or anything else, but I was the light on the Zeitgeist movie, the first one. The producer said I did it all based on Jordan Maxwell, period.
Yeah, but still throughout those other movies, quite honestly, until you get to the fourth one, you're still present in the material. I mean, it's just...
I didn't even know that, because I didn't even know about Zeitgeist, much less what else is on.
Yeah, I'm just, well, you know what it is? I became rather enamored with this stuff when it was handed out, because there was this encouragement to hand out those DVDs for free years ago.
Yeah.
Which someone handed me one. I created some copies. I handed them along, and this is, before YouTube was a big enough thing. People were doing this. And, right. Quite honestly, I got to see you before I knew who you were.
Well, lots of people did. Yeah, a lot of people saw Zeitgeist, which the word Zeitgeist is a German word, which means the spirit of the times.
Right.
Zeitgeist means the spirit of the times in which you're living. Well, my God, if you want to talk about the spirit of the times in which we're living, you're talking about chaos, lies, deception, misunderstandings, purposeful darkness, to keep the people in the dark about what's going on, the real lies and the destruction of the human family. That is the spirit of the times in which we're living. Mm-hmm. And I've wanted to be able to start myself. I'd like to, what I really would like to be able to do, which I know I could do if I had help, I would like to reform religion I would like to start a new understanding of the ancient world of religion, where the religions of this world have come from, and get back to the original. Go back to the old, ancient, original religion, which was called the sacred science. The sacred science or astrotheology. I'd like to reform religion. Open up the world to the real truth of where Judaism has come from, where Islam has come from, and where Christianity is based on. Go back to the old way. And that's another interesting point. Christianity was referred to in the Roman Empire. Christians themselves were referred to. They don't know this. But in the Roman Empire, Christians were referred to as atheists. Christians were the first atheists in the Roman Empire. Why? Because they would not worship the Roman gods. And so the Romans said, if you won't worship our gods, you must be crazy. Because they are the only gods in the whole universe is the Roman gods. And if you don't worship the Roman gods, then you are obviously an atheist. You're crazy because you don't worship our gods. Well, today is the same thing. Today, people have all kinds of words and names for people like me who are not accepting the world that we live in and not accepting the religious situation that we've been given, because religions around the world are corporations. They're business. This is why all the churches are in denominations. Denominations like 10s and 20s and 50s. Churches are divided into denominations because they are a business. They are corporations. It's an extraordinary fact of the world you live in. I've been doing this kind of research all my life. And what I finally end up with today, after doing this for some 60 years, is broke with nothing, owning nothing, and have paid a terrible price because I've lost my family, I've lost my friends, I've lost almost everything I ever did, I almost ever had, because it's a very dark road when you go into the darkness of the human race, where we really come from, what the real truth is. And this is what I have always wanted to do, is try and bring light into a very dark world that I live. So that's what I try and do. I try and help people to wake up to the real facts of history. It's an extraordinary world we live in, and it's a very dark place.
You know what's funny, Jordan? I just forwarded you an email, which you might want to look at later, but you sort of intuitively answered one of the questions that came in while you were speaking. So I just wanted to let you see that in real time. It came from somebody who identifies themselves as Russell in Mississippi. Now I don't know, but it's really fascinating. Take a look at the timestamp on that. You literally transitioned exactly from one topic to the next and sort of answered the tail end of his email there. There's some praise in there and a few other things about the presentation, and he was hoping to get in for the live show. Well, you did, Russell, just to let you know. But it's really fascinating, because what can we do about this? Can we get back to the legitimate relationship between, I hate to use this word, but the divine and ourselves? Can we actually accomplish that? Is that something? See, again, now you got to have that debate like we talked about at the top of the show, Jordan, where something, can it be done and will it be done? These are two different questions, right? Can we solve all of these painful things that are destroying, murdering, absolutely causing, the deaths of thousands of children and other people that are seemingly completely innocent on the planet on a daily basis, that are being devastated by the systematic, the systematic decimation of the human family? Could we stop it all tomorrow? Yes. Will we? Well,
I don't think so. I don't think that we have the ability. We as humans do not have the wherewithal to change the world, because we don't have the power to change. Why do we not have the power to change anything? We don't have the power to change anything. Why? Because knowledge is power. Without knowledge, you cannot change anything. You may have a Rolls Royce, and if it's not running, you need to get someone who understands Rolls Royces, who actually knows what's going on to fix it. And so you can't go to the same people who have caused the trouble we are in today and ask them to help us get out of the trouble. They are the enemies of the human family. They are the religionists. They open up the churches and the religions, and they all are in bed with the government. They all are being fed by the Federal Reserve and the banking institutions. And when you see how the whole world works, which, like I said, if you go on the web and go to my website and just listen to the lectures, you will hear how this whole world has been put together a long time ago by the Knights Templars, by the religious orders, by what we call today the CIA in America is actually a Masonic Catholic Vatican order operating in America today. So CIA, I say, should not be Central Intelligence Agency. It should be the Catholic Intelligence Agency. Why? Because the CIA was founded by a group called the Knights of Malta. Knights of Malta, which was an incredibly powerful secret society operating in Europe under the Vatican, under the Pope. And they are still today very powerful today, and some of the most important criminals and Nazi officers in the SS and the Gestapo under Adolf Hitler were members of the Knights of Malta. And they came over here after the Second World War, and they set up something that they call these Nazis and criminals under the Vatican. They came over to America. We allowed them in. And they came over and they set up something called the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, as a Knights of Malta Masonic order that's running our country from behind the scenes for the Vatican. Wake up and get a life. The Vatican is the CIA in America today.
CIA works for a lot of things, though, Jordan. You know, it's the cocaine importation agency as well. Okay.
That's right.
You know, it works across the board. There's lots of different uses for those three letters. But, you know, believe it or not, we're running very low on time. And I want to take this moment again to remind people that there is only one website that is Jordan Maxwell's. There's only one place that you can get directly the research information. That would be the Research Society, which you can find at Jordan Maxwell's website. And there's only one place you can get videos straight from the man himself. That is all at jordanmaxwellshow.com. Okay. And you got to put it all together. It has to be all one word, jordanmaxwellshow.com. If you go there, you will find that there's a public area, sure, and absolutely feel free to email Jordan. Jordan loves to hear your thoughts, especially about presentations like this, your questions, not just for the purposes of this show, but more than happy to answer them on this show. I'm sure that Jordan would be more than happy to just respond to you if you just wrote to him and asked him some honest questions. He would give you some honest answers as best he knows. I've even heard Jordan say, you know, I don't necessarily know about that. It's rare, but it does happen. And Jordan also, if he doesn't know something, he might actually have somebody to refer you to. So again, feel free to interact with Jordan, make a donation, join the Research Society. That's over on the right hand of the website, right-hand side of the website, excuse me. If you're looking at it on most things, I don't know how it looks on a mobile device. It might be a little different, but I'm sure the link for the Research Society is still there, and for the videos that are streaming are there, and it's all at jordanmaxwellshow.com. Now, this has been the 17th installment of this particular series, and yes, indeed, it's going to continue until Jordan says we're done. So it's just that simple. You know, hopefully you'll be able to do this next Monday.
Yes, and I love doing your show. Incidentally, I'm very happy to be able to do your show. And as far as I'm concerned, I like the idea that it just goes on and on and on, because there's all kinds of questions that come up, and there's so many things that we need to talk about. And I think this is a great opportunity for me to be able to talk to the people and let them know who I am and where to go to find my work. And you've helped me immensely, and I like that, and I appreciate it. And so I think we ought to do this show on a continual basis. I like doing it.
Well, and I appreciate that. Look, I'm more than happy to do this with you all the time. It is extremely educational. I learn something every single show, at least one thing. In some cases, I just remember some things I might have forgotten. It's amazing. Jordan does this with no notes, no preconceived agenda. We just come on and look, whatever questions you guys enter, whatever questions pop into my mind, whatever input I drop into this, also plays a part. And you ever notice Jordan does not have, a loss for words. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. He knows what you guys are talking about. Sometimes he's even answering your questions before I get to ask them, as we just found out a little while ago. Take a look at that email, Jordan. I think you'll find it amazing that you answered the question. The only thing specific in there, which was interesting, that I wanted to mention really quick on our way out the door, and I think this is a great closing sort of thing for the last couple of minutes. The idea that, should we establish a religion for, I find this interesting, because a lot of people figure, look, you got to come up with literature, you got to come up with a book, you got to come up with a building, you got to, it seems to me like the things that are done, sure, there's ways of training people when it comes to the arts, when it comes to practical applications of knowledge in one way or another, when it comes to navigating our way through the world, making the world a better place, creating force multipliers, taking care of the needs of individuals when it comes to farming, et cetera, et cetera. But you know what? It seems interesting to me that the majority of the greatest wisdom is not collected in a book necessarily. Of course, you can begin with books and you can learn from books, but the collection of wisdom and the ability to truthfully have a relationship with the deity or deities or whatever it is you want to say, to have a relationship with the source, if you will. It seems to me as though the establishment of a religion is counterintuitive to this. That at some point there is a way to teach without necessarily creating things which could easily be corrupted, like a structure that exists in organized religion today, et cetera, et cetera. But that's my opinion. What is your thought about that? I mean, is there a way to encourage people to go back to, like what you were saying, where people could unravel all of this and begin to have a clean connection to the divine? Yes. Or, what is your thoughts?
Well, I think that the Bible in the Old Testament, God says to Israel, you have taken a wrong road. You have accepted, the paganry of the ancient world. And then he says, go back to the old way. That's a scripture that says, go back to the old way. And this is what I'm saying that we need to do as people today. You need to go back to the old original way of understanding the universe, the way the ancient peoples knew. The things that we're trying to learn today, it's a science. And I'm saying we need to go back to the old way. And there's only a couple of people on the earth who have done that. And I've tried to do that and collect up those people who really are very well informed and trying to help people. And I promote them. And I want to put that on my website. That's one of the folders on my website. There's important people and links. If you go on my website, the research website, you will see important links and people. It's the people that I know are very, very bright and important people talking about things that you really need to know about. So if you're going to go out and listen to things on the web, you need to go to my website and find out where the good stuff really is. So that's one of the things I've got on my research website. People you need to know about and listen to. I'm saving you the time of 30 to 50 years of trying to find out who has the good stuff. I already know who has the good stuff. I've learned from them, and I want you to know about them. So it's on my research website. Now, again, I want to thank you for having me on the show, and I'm delighted that we could do this every week. I love to do it.
Well, absolutely. Of course, at the top of that list of people was Manly P. Hall, who we've discussed on this show, who was a friend of Jordan's. He's no longer with us, but a friend of yours. And there's an interesting story if you listen back in the archives to this show. Of course, I'm not on that list just yet, but maybe one day I'll get there. Jordan, I know that you belong on your own list, and you belong at the top of it, my friend. And I want to thank you once again for doing this. And we will continue the series. But until then, like I said, go over to JordanMaxwellShow.com. Yes, you have to put it all together as one word, JordanMaxwellShow.com, and that is your starting point. You can join the Research Society. You can email Jordan, make a donation to his well-being, because that's the truth of it at this point in time. That's exactly where that money would go if you make a donation to Jordan at JordanMaxwellShow.com. You can send him an email. You can take a look at the public area if you like, but I do advise you join the Research Society. I do advise you get as much Jordan Maxwell as you can, because no insult to you, my friend, but there is a limited time that you have left here, and I think that people should, instead of celebrating you after you're gone and talking about how great you were, interact with you, participate in your well-being, your research, your work while you're still here. Because that's something I was reflecting on over the past week. A lot of people are celebrated in death. And you know what? I'd much rather celebrate Jordan in life. I will miss him if he outlives me. If he doesn't outlive me, I mean to say, you never can tell. But I will miss him if he does not outlive me. But the truth is that I think that you need to take the rare opportunity to interact with the rare people and the rare knowledge they have before they're gone.